very much. Thank you, everybody, for your patience for this evening. I'd like to call the June 1st, 2022 meeting of our Special Education Advisory Committee to order. And I also want to acknowledge that we are hosting this meeting in unceded and Algonquin territory, and we thank the Algonquin people for letting us host this meeting on their land. And I'd like to introduce our Student Center, Lean Al Ruffy. I hope that's how I'm saying your name okay, who is observing the advisory committee meeting this evening. Welcome, Lean.
Thank you.
And I hope that our committee members this evening and those present will embrace the spirit of the community of character attributes we aim to install in our students and be courteous, respectful, and polite. I just want to take a moment also before continuing on in this meeting to acknowledge the incident. I know it's not in our country, but it did happen in the States and it did happen to the students. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the students of Robb Elementary School in Oakdale, Texas, as well as the 2 teachers that passed away in this dreadful incident that took place last week. So let's, as we continue to advocate for the youth this evening, to keep those youth in our minds and in our hearts. Thank you. And now I call a mover to approve the agenda as listed. Dr. Maggie, thank you. And does anyone have any changes? You'll see my head moving because I couldn't print this evening, so I apologize ahead of time. Oh, Jim?
No, sorry, that was just me trying to beat Maggie to the moving aspect of it, and I wasn't fast enough. So
okay. So does anyone have any changes or additions to the agenda? Okay, and may I have a mover for approval of the agenda? Oh,
sorry, I just had a question about something that was in the minutes. If you indulge me on that,
for sure.
It's on page 5 of the documents that we received, and on that page it's under the issue of right to read. And it's a paragraph that says, screeners are not appropriate for all students due to the level of English support required, but the same methods used for English students, such as encoding, decoding, working with phonics before letters, and developing a strong foundation in the first language are adapted and used. I think that was in response to my question about how the French immersion students were going to be involved in the right to read, whatever the board is doing. And I'm afraid I don't understand the answer. And I figure if I ask the question and I don't understand the answer, then I'm not quite sure what's gone on in there.
Superintendent Simmons?
Just making sure Maggie hasn't frozen there. No.
No.
So I don't remember that question in relation to French immersion. I remember it in relation to English as a second language learners. And the notion that using an English-based screener would not necessarily be appropriate for a second language learner. But if it's in relation to your question, I can try to get some clarification in relation to it. And my recollection could be wrong.
I mean, it may have been 2 issues that were kind of merged maybe into one answer. You know, my concern was more about the screener with kiddies who are learning in French, and whether we're, what we're screening for in those students that we screen. My point was kind of, if their mother tongue is English and we're looking at phonemic awareness, for example, which language do we screen in? And there was another answer just below that one that talked about phonetics being different in French. Again, that wasn't really the point. Anyway, it's not clear to me what the answer to that question is, and so I still kind of have that question in my mind, just in general, as to how this whole thing is going to play out with the children in French immersion, in the early grades of French immersion. So it's just that I figured by this point in my career I should probably understand the answer to a question like that, and I just didn't follow what was in that particular paragraph. That's all.
Right.
Because of that. So
no, that's quite all right. But we can also take this back and try and get a clearer answer for you as well. So if I understand your question, it's around language of screening for students in French, for students whose first language is English, but are learning in French, what language will they be screened in?
Yes, in order to determine the gaps in their phonemic awareness in the language of instruction, right?
Okay.
In general, that's my point. So
Yeah.
thanks.
So I'm going to make a note of that, and we'll get back to you with that.
Okay,
and I know we aren't at that point in amending, but I'll make a note of your question, Maggie, and maybe we can just make an amendment if a committee member so felt that answer might be applicable to the English as a second language learners, just to clarify that in the minutes. But when we get there, maybe someone will so move that.
That's good. Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a mover for the approval of the agenda? Sue Gowan, thank you. All those in favor? Perfect, passed. Thank you. So there were no amendments, but we just discussed that actually right now too. Can I have a mover to receive the SEAC report of May 4th, 2022? Trustee Campbell? And do I have a mover to receive the minutes? That's the same one. All those in favor? Perfect. Passed. Thank you.
Sorry, Sonia, did we just pass the minutes?
We did the minutes. And then
did we have somebody suggest that we might want to amend that page 5, the screener bullet?
Oh, right. Sorry about that.
Just to make sure it's all
Can
above
I have
board.
a mover to amend page 5? Sue Gowan, thank you. Sorry, Peter. It's my brain right now. Do you want me to go through that?
It's okay. As Sue has moved that we'll make the adjustment.
The amendment.
And I apologize because I was writing the note down so I wouldn't lose Maggie's questions.
That's all good. I'm going to start that part again. So I'd like to call for a mover to receive our SEAC report of May 4th, 2022. Thank you, Trustee Campbell. And do I have a mover to receive the minutes? Morad, thank you. And all those in favor? Perfect, thank you, passed. So as you all know, our forward agenda for 2021-22 has been provided for you in the package for your information. As well, I think we had mentioned it last meeting, Peter, that this is the time to start thinking about what you'd like to see in our forward agenda. As well, you know, even if you don't think of it this evening, if it pops up to you after tonight or throughout the summer, email us, because we do meet in August and we will be putting those forward in our forward agenda for the fall. Yes, Superintendent Peter Simmons.
The other thing that committee members might want to consider as well is taking a look at the order in which we did. Like there's the standard things that appear every year. If there's feedback on the order and timing of those things, we'd definitely be open in agenda planning to taking a look at those things. So please feel free to share your thoughts with Sonia and I.
Thank you. So I would like to invite Superintendent Simmons to present the report 22-046 Special Education Plan 2021-2022. I'm going to, after this, just we'll see how we're doing and how we are for time, and if you all feel to continue or to take a 5-minute break, it'll be you guys who can vote on that. So go ahead.
Thank you very much. And you do have the culmination of the one of the legislated responsibilities of the Special Education Advisory Committee responsibilities each year. And this is the time of year when we bring it back to you, where we've captured and made adjustments and considered some of the suggestions and advice that SEAC has made over the course of the year as we've taken a look at the different standards each month. I'm going to turn this over very quickly to System Principal Hannah, who will flag a couple of the high-level things and then take us through the rest of the process.
Thank you, Superintendent Simmons, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to our June meeting. It's nice to see you. So here we are with that annual task of before you, you have the special education plan for 21-22. And as you know, we consulted throughout the months leading up into this time, and then there was some individual review that happened related to some of the standards within the special education plan. So very similar to previous years, we have this requirement to provide it to the Ministry of Education by July 31st, and hoping that tonight we will be able to move forward with approving it from this committee, and then of course going to board for final approval at the end of June. So some of the changes you'll see and note throughout that we did take quite a bit of time to review and to incorporate some of the feedback that was received, but also some of the different work that has been undertaken this year throughout our time together, but also within our department and supporting schools K-21. And we hope that you notice in some of the sections and some of the standards specifically, we've added a new section, which is a looking ahead in the standard, because we know some of the work is happening throughout this year and is a continuation. And we wanted to signal to all of you what the work that is either begun or is coming forward as we move into the summer and into next year. So where there is opportunity to make changes and to provide updates of information, we've added that section to those specific standards for your information. So when we get there next year as part of the review, you'll be able to sort of see what we had highlighted, and then we can obviously give an update on that information and then look at where we're going ahead and moving forward in those areas. We also engaged in a consultation through our work this year on our review of the special education plan. And we do this typically, but we did a more fulsome review with some of the different individuals within our organization. So I've highlighted a few of them here in the letter of transmittal. Of course, we have our academic and then our professional staff in our Department and Learning Support Services. We also worked with the program and learning system principals. You've had the pleasure of meeting quite a few of them this year as they presented to us at the SEAC. So Brent Smith and Kristen Riddell and others, Lori Kavanaugh, they all provided some insight and some information into certain standards, specifically around early intervention and early identification and other areas as well. We've liaised with our equity and ESL and ELD system principal because we do work closely with them. And then last but not least, our human rights and equity advisor, Carolyn Tanner, looking through our board service delivery model to really ensure that it meets the standards of the accommodation process through that legislation piece. Last but not least, the standard that we don't get to provide too much input into is the one around our health supports and services. And what does happen in the background is Stacey Kay, our manager, works very closely with the manager at CHEO, who is responsible for integrated care. So all that information is updated by the key point person at CHEO that provides that information to us. So I just wanted to highlight some of those collaborations to really ensure that the information is up to date, but also that we're providing that very sort of diverse lens of all the work and services that are provided within our district. I wanted to highlight as well that as we move into next year, we've identified sort of 4 areas, 4 standards that we are really going to be spending some time on supporting learning for as it relates to administrators in our schools, teachers, early childhood educators, educational assistants, etc. And that work has already actually begun. So we've had opportunities this winter to offer some sessions for principals on IEP development. And then we've also had sessions on IPRC process, and we've updated that parent guide that is hyperlinked within the document too for the district as well. But next year, we will be continuing those conversations in those two specific areas. But also, as you've heard already at our last meeting, there is a lot of work happening around early identification procedures and intervention procedures. And so we are going to be continuing that work and providing professional development opportunities related to that. And last but not least, our general model as it relates to special education supports and services. So just wanted to highlight that that's sort of coming down as part of the work that we undertook in the review of each of those sections. And some of that is highlighted in that looking ahead component for all of you. So I'm hoping that tonight I will share, this is this year's edition. Always room for growth and always room for improvement, and looking forward to engaging in that conversation as soon as we get back in September, that we will continue to review this plan and continue to try to improve and make it as best as we can. But for this year's version, I'd like to say this is the one that you have before you. And if you have any questions, we're happy to take them. But if there aren't, that I would like to move forward the recommendation for your approval of the SEAC so we can move it forward to our Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No. So do you request to move it forward, or do I?
We need a member of the committee to move the recommendation on page 4 of the report.
So can I get a mover then? To that? Okay, Sue Cowan. And then all those in favor? Passed.
So just so people know, this now will go on to board at the end of the month, and board will see that SEAC has made this motion and moved it, and the final motion will come from board. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Amy and team, for all your work on this.
Thank you. Seeing that it's only 7:30, if everybody's okay with it, we move ahead with Superintendent Simmons' report. Anybody opposing? No, go for it.
Thank you. So in terms of my update this month, there's not a lot of an update as it relates to COVID. We have shifted our masking policy from mandatory masking to still emphasizing the importance of wearing a mask, but it is optional. And we continue to have meetings with OPH so that we're monitoring the lay of the land as it relates to COVID in our city, so that we can be as responsive as possible should the trends start to shift. So less of an update about COVID, but our real issue has been the storm over the last week. There's been a lot of work done over the last week. We've moved from having almost half our schools without power to the last one today, and it's opening tomorrow, Maryvale High School, so we're back online. I do personally want to share or express my hope that everybody fared well during the storm. I lost about 40 feet of fence, but I know many others fared much, much worse. So I hope that people were safe throughout that storm. So if anyone knows a fence guy, might be hook me up. But things are progressing, and thanks for everyone's patience throughout that, with disruptions to transportation and obviously to widespread school closures. Today, we are joined by Chris Kessler, who many of us will know as Assistant Principal Kessler, who was with the department for a number of years, and also principal at Clifford Bowie Public School. And we're going to provide a brief update. I do apologize for the last minute distribution of this update to you, but you did receive it in your email inboxes earlier today. It was still being written, and because we knew we needed to make it here for June 1st. So timelines were not our friend in getting this out to you. But we have been engaged in this work for quite some time. And I really felt prior to heading off to the summer for SEAC, wanted to bring you up to date with our activities and plans moving forward as we look at program monitoring for Clifford Bowie and Crystal Bay. One of the things that I should have cued into much earlier, but it was at the request of the principals of Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie. Many of us who work in this field refer to both those sites very quickly as the CB sites. And we have had a request, and quite rightly so. And I'm going to ask that everyone do their best to honor the request. When we look at the programming going on in those schools and the learning that's happening for those students, it's important that we recognize that they are schools and independent schools. So we're going to be working on calling them by their names as we would any other school, Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie. So we're going to be working on it. I might slip up every now and then. If I do, please feel free to correct me as I try to shift my long history of training. But I think it's important for us to recognize the good work that's going on at those two schools. So this work began pre-pandemic. There was a delegation at SEAC, some people might remember, talking about concerns about class size, for example. Then we were interrupted by labor disruption, and we were interrupted significantly by the pandemic. But we have starting to taking a look at program monitoring and quality program for students who would attend Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie. One of the things that I've committed to is making sure that this is a broad-reaching examination of what does it look like? And Chris is going to go into a few more details around what we're trying to get out of this in order that I can stand up in front of people in good conscience and say, this is what we believe should be effective programming standards for students who would typically attend Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie. We have attended a few different school councils to get their thoughts and ideas as we moved along in this process. We were asked point blank, is this a budget conversation? Because way before any of us, conversations were begun about Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie from a budget perspective. And I say that just to be completely clear and transparent and have it shared widely that what we're talking about here is understanding more about the students who attend Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie and their needs and the effective programming, instructional strategies, and so on that go into supporting those students. I'm going to turn it over to Chris to take us through some of the highlights, because I know you did just receive it late, and she'll go through some of the key points, and then happy to take any questions after that. Oh, and by the way, welcome back, Chris. It's very nice to see you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And thank you, everyone. It's a real privilege to be spending this time with you. And thank you very much, Madam Chair, for making room for us today. It's so important to Peter and myself and those who have started this work that we keep lines of communication open and provide you with regular updates and an opportunity to participate. So far, I've been working most extensively with System Principal Kate Stout and with Peter and with the program evaluator in Learning Support Services, Michael Fairbrother. I've also had the opportunity to meet with the superintendent of the schools and the principals, and what you have before you is the initial plan, the program monitoring plan, and really Mike as program evaluator was the lead in terms of authoring this plan. And I think what's really important and significant to share with you is that the program monitoring review is taking a participatory approach, and really what that means is that we want to ensure that the various stakeholders those who are closest to the work, to the students, those who are family members, caregivers, guardians, and the wider community have an opportunity to participate in taking a look at programs and services. And I just want to, I know many of you are very, very experienced, but I just wanted to sort of take a moment to talk about program and services. So what do we mean by program? So program is in fact the learning program of our students, our exceptional students, and it should be reflected, outlined in any student's individual education plan. Services is a broad category that includes things like facilities and resources. It also includes staffing personnel. And so with services, it's a little bit broader in terms of looking at the what and the who, and with the program, it's about what are our students learning, and with the who also, it's understanding who are the students who are presently attending Clifford Bowie and Crystal Bay, and what do their needs look like, and have their needs changed over time, as already has been indicated by a number of parents and caregivers and by staff. So we're going to be taking a look at that through the establishment of a working group, and the working group will help design sort of the review activities. So that's what you have as well, both in the report and in the plan, is a suggestion of what we will be doing as a working group. That will start as of June, as will perhaps those, we imagine those preliminary conversations with the principals. And we have, Mike and I have arranged to be present to answer questions with the school councils as well further along in June. So I guess what I would want to highlight is that through this participatory approach, if need be, the plan, we want it to be responsive. So the plan may evolve in response to participation, stakeholder participation. And yet what we're really after is an understanding of whether the current program is meeting the needs of our students, and if so, what are the good things about it? And if it's not meeting the needs of students, what types of recommendations can we bring forward? And we have an ambitious goal to do that by the winter. So that's really where we are. I was asked and just feel it's very humbling to be the project lead. And I can't tell you how, just how excited I am and passionate about having this opportunity. And I really look forward to spending some additional time with you over these next months. Oh, and the literature review and jurisdictional scan, Peter would probably want me to share with you that I've said I'm available over the summer, and I will be, and I'd really like to be able to keep the work moving forward. So Mike and I, with the working group, will be taking a look at what pieces we can establish for the summer. Members of the working group, some of them do work in the summer, most don't, but Mike and I will be continuing with the work and arranging the literature review, looking at what data we can start collecting so that we can keep moving forward. I think that's it. I'm sure Peter will fill in the parts that I've missed.
No, Chris, you did an absolute perfect job sharing some of the details around what our proposed activities are. And just to underscore two of the things you said, as an example, when Chris and I first met about this, I spoke about student voice. And as many of you will know, many of the students who are at Crystal Bay or Clifford Bowie are nonverbal. And I asked Chris, could we contemplate, is there any way to try to access some student voice, some student experience? So when I talk about that as an example, it's not explicitly written in the plan, but that's the kind of flexibility that we want to have built in if we're able to come up with a way to engage students in that manner. As we go through it, trying to make sure we get as broad spread perspectives as possible from the people who are most close to the work going on at those two schools. So Chris said the timeline is ambitious. That has been feedback that we have received throughout this process. It is part of the reason that I did ask Chris to come back and lead this work for us, because we don't have anybody in the department with the bandwidth to be able to engage in this work solely. So by bringing Chris in, hopefully we will get close to that timeline and maybe meet it. So that's the goal that we're aiming for. But we'll be bringing regular updates as we progress. So happy to take any questions if there are any.
Yes, Trustee Campbell.
Yeah, thank you. Exciting initiative. And it sounds, I guess the last review was 2010, maybe well overdue, especially some of the environmental changes that which have occurred. Just one or two quick questions of basic understanding and interpretation, and then maybe one other. I'm noticing that the, let's see, the it's called a program monitoring exercise, or the words seem to vary. It's program review, program monitoring, and I believe it's suggested that program monitoring is a type of program review, but I guess the implication is that it's a sort of a program review light. Is that correct? Or maybe could you characterize that so I understand the difference in this case?
So Rob, maybe I could start and Peter could jump in. The board's website talks about a program review process, and it talks about 4 categories of reviews. And one of those categories is program monitoring. And it is true though, Rob, that I may not have been as consistent as I should have been with the language that I presented to Peter. I'm always open to working on that. So, you know, if your observations have always been helpful in the past, and I'm happy to take any feedback. But
not suggesting any correction. I just literally want to know what distinguishes, without having gone to this page, I guess, what distinguishes a monitoring type of review from others? Is it?
So yeah, it's sort of the acknowledgement that the program has established, and it's taking a look at what the any changes that are impacting on the program over time. So for example, we would like to get a sense of the demographics, because certainly service delivery models should respond to any changing demographics. And it's been suggested that there have been changes since 2010. Also, through the lens of the human rights code, that code was updated rather significantly in terms of access to education. And perhaps it would be helpful for you, as all of you as members of SEAC, to know that I've already met with Carolyn Tanner, the Human Rights and Equity Advisor for the school board, and she's very supportive of this work and the plan thus far, and has offered to be a resource, and I've told her we'd be taking her up on that. So the monitoring, as I understand it, and I guess I'm not a program evaluator, so please give me a little bit of room here, is really in reference to an established program and the board's commitment to continuous improvement through this review process. Yeah, so it's less of an evaluation, although certain components of it may look like an evaluation. But the goal really is, of the review work, as it is for the other categories of review, is really to ensure that we're providing quality programming to our students, and really ensuring that they have the best possible outcomes.
Great, thank you. And now you have my curiosity. I have to go look at those other types of program review. So I guess the drivers that I'm seeing here, I guess, and just correct me, I think it is covered in the covering report. But as I understand it, yeah, the OHRC changes would be a driver. Increased complexity and needs of students at these facilities perhaps has been a driver. Increased types of specialized equipment, perhaps a driver. and I guess some of the others listed here. So those seem to be the drivers. Yeah, okay, seeing nods. So effectively, when I get to the when I think of the guiding questions in the separate document, those guiding questions are, in a sense, with respect to those drivers.
Yes,
Is
and
that
also,
correct? Okay.
yes, and also in response to some initial comments, input, feedback from parents and the school councils, because they, as Peter mentioned, they brought forward some items for discussion previously. So I'm very glad that, well, I'm very glad that I'm going to be able to meet with those school councils before the end of this school year, and start the process of collaboration, really.
Perfect. Last quick question, if I can fit it in, and that is, again, it's a terminological thing, perhaps, and that is program review. Got it. In the document, and you may already have referred to this, and I missed it, but in the let's see, the Appendix A, it does refer, however, to broadly, dimensions of interest revolve around the service delivery model. And then under academic literature review, we'll explore service delivery factors. And so I guess what I'm wondering is, to what extent is this a program review versus service delivery review? And maybe that's semantics, but I'd just like to understand.
Sure. So as I understand it in the research I've done thus far, Rob, the service delivery model is the framework through which the programs and services are provided. So yeah, it may be a little bit technical, and like I say, it's helpful to have eyes on the initial work, the initial plan and report. So really, the service delivery model is the framework itself, sort of the vehicle through which we take a look at programs and services. And of course, we're interested in, for example, what other school boards, like how they've established their service delivery. And I mean, the school board has always, the OCDSB has for many years worked with a continuum that does include support in the regular classroom all the way through to fully self-contained, and including specialized program classes and including 2 specialized educational schools.
Yeah,
so,
I saw the accommodation port. So effectively, this will be looking effectively both at program, learning program, but also service delivery. It'll be both.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's a big mandate, and I think that's why, that's I can see why, why our plan has been described maybe as a little bit ambitious, but we won't know until we really drill down, right, and get going on it. So that's one of the things that I think will become apparent pretty quickly.
Thank you very much.
Kathy?
I just have a quick question. First of all, I think it's wonderful.
Oh, no, Catherine, sorry,
sorry.
Kathy. It was Kathy,
sorry.
and then Catherine, then Connie, sorry.
Close. Yeah, so I guess a lot of people on the committee, I believe the last review that was undertaken by the board was the gifted review. And I think it's fair to say that most stakeholders would not view that as a major success. So anyway, I just wanted to offer, as someone who was involved in the gifted review, as a parent, as association rep, I have people in my house that are attending the program. If there's any way that, or any input as to some of the pitfalls that perhaps from my point of view that we ran into with the gifted review, feel free to reach out to me. And I'm sure it's a completely different, there's a lot of different staff and everything like that, and I'm sure you've all learned. But if there's anything I can do to help to hopefully avoid that, any of those things, then that would be, I just figured I'd offer. So
Thank you so much, Kathy. And yes, I recall of some of those reviews in the past, and I was fortunate enough to even participate in the learning disabilities review with Peter a number of years ago. I think I will probably take you up on that offer, quite honestly. Part of the joy of doing this work is learning, the learning that I get to do, which is a little bit selfish, from people who have those experiences, from families, from the program evaluator, so absolutely, thank you. That's really generous of you, and I appreciate that, especially in terms of consultation with the wider community.
Yeah, I appreciate it's a very challenging task to do, but hopefully it can go better this time. So
Thank you, Kathy. Catherine Holden.
Oh, yeah, sorry about before. I think
it's
it's wonderful that they've brought in, but they brought back Christine, because talk about the perfect person. I was wondering last time when the parents, when I remember when we had delegates from this what were they? They were school council chairs for each of the sites, and they were discussing their point was the class sizes. And that was really what they were looking for, basically their point was they wanted to have the same class sizes as autism programs. And that was sort of their argument. And so I brought forward the fact that maybe it might be time based on the extra complications and complexities and diagnoses that our individuals have. Will there be some look at what is the primary exceptionality that these students have, and are we now looking at programs that really are for multiple exceptionalities, and then that would be a very different ratio?
Thanks for raising this, Catherine. Yes, I was made aware that that chairs of the school council had brought forward sort of a conversation around class size as it pertains to students and their exceptionalities. And so one of the areas of exploration will in fact be the learning profiles of the students and also staffing. And staffing is a big category, right? It includes all of those folks who are there to provide services and the direct including the direct instruction and the support. So so when we take a look at staffing, we envision, of course, don't want to get ahead of myself, but we do envision taking a look at key staff who are there to support the delivery of programming, and absolutely I expect that question will come up about the ratio, and we're certainly not going to skirt around it. Yeah, and we believe that, well, I personally believe that in exploring the learning profiles of the students, in understanding their exceptionalities, that we may be able to get a better understanding of what level of supports and services are going to be needed in order to really enhance learning outcomes for this population of students. And that's one of the reasons that we're taking a look at Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie, because these are students we acknowledged already that they have very high needs, and we were interested in further understanding how to ensure that their learning and dignity and well-being is honored and respected and planned for.
What is the current class size based on? Is it DD? Developmental delay, is that 10?
Actually, it's the board years back, a number of years back, I'm going back even before the last review in 2010, there was a decision taken to make the ratio 1 teacher to 8 students. So it actually is falling sort of in between the Education Act and that regulation about enrollment in specialized program or in specialized classes based on exceptionality and profile. So it's 1 to 8 at the current time at both schools.
Catherine?
Thank you.
And also, if I'm not mistaken, Christine, we also have EAs in there as well, right? You can have 1 to 2 EAs, and then you have the students, and then you have your teacher.
That's right, Sonia. And typically, learning support services and the board of trustees have approved. They'll approve the number of EAs, and then those get assigned. But just to highlight, though, that the actual ratio in the Education Act pertains to teacher staffing, not other staff, such as educational assistants, speech language pathologists, school psychologists. So it's very specific language in the Education Act to the teacher to student ratio. And I believe that's the ratio Catherine was asking about. By and large, though, in the 2 schools, there are the majority of classes, my understanding is that they have 3 educational assistants for the 8 students to support their learning and personal needs and safety needs.
Perfect. Thank you. Connie?
Thank you, Chris, for telling us about the work that's planned. It sounds really exciting, and it sounds like a big job. And my questions are, and I understand how in any kind of measurement you have to choose what you're going to measure, and you have to make the process both the process and the outcome have to be manageable. So that being said, I'm wondering how this fits in with with 2 other things, or 2 other issues. One of them is about a year ago, and even before pandemic, there was discussion around an LSS review that I believe was planned. An external agency is going to review how LSS does business. And then looking at this and being familiar with the process, the tiered process by which students get placed at Clifford Bowie and Crystal Bay, many of those students spend their kindergarten years in different community schools, and they in order to get to Clifford Bowie and Crystal Bay, they go through a lot of interventions, classroom supports, various assessments, gathering of information, trying to come to an understanding of their needs that eventually results in the students being placed through the IPRC at Clifford Bowie and Crystal Bay. So my question around that is, will you be looking at that process of how students arrive there, and will you be looking at this particular process that this review of Clifford Bowie and Crystal Bay? I'm trying integrating new language. Will you be looking at it within the context of this, what I understand to be an upcoming LSS review? Does that make sense?
I think it does. I'm going to ask Peter to speak to some of that, Connie, because my work is very specific to right now to Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie. Peter, would you perhaps like to start with that bigger question about the overview that Connie's mentioning?
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Connie. Excuse me for 1 second. Sorry about that. So the LSS operational review, we brought forward a memo last year or 2 years ago, I think it was, talking about how in order for us to get accurate information, we have a number of students and a number of parents who haven't experienced a typical school year as a result of the pandemic. So that was put on hold. So when it comes to that work, we are looking next year at coming back to SEAC to take a look at the questions and the goals and the purpose, because that work began in after October 2018. And it is going to be 2022, 23 when we get back to it. And a lot of things have changed. We have made a number of changes, a number of improvements. And if we ask the same questions, I want to make sure that whatever we get out of it is going to help guide our direction in departmental work moving forward. So that work doesn't really play into the work that we've asked Chris to undertake just yet. There will be opportunities for us to discuss the operational review moving forward. Looking into actual review cycle of 23, 24, but we want to lead into that work in advance, so we're not behind the 8 ball moving forward. So that's that piece. In terms of entry to or access to Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie, that may form part of this. I'm not sure, given the ambitious timeline that we've set just yet, to be quite frank. But that might be something that we can contemplate moving forward. Thank you for raising it. We are trying to kind of walk the line. We want to meet a meaty program monitoring piece here, but we also don't want to take 18 months to do it. But having said that, we don't want to jump to snap decisions because we have an opportunity here to get a deep dive into a very specific area of research and hopefully come out with some recommendations, some guidance, some guidelines, some things the district might want to continue, might want to look into moving forward, and those kinds of questions. So possibly, but I can't commit to it right now. And I see Chris nodding, so I've got that right.
Yeah, I think that's really good language, Peter, because the scope of the work, Connie, is really focused right now on quality programming. And but your points are well taken. And should it be the case that various stakeholders identify that as an area that they would like to see explored, then certainly I would bring it forward with the working group, and we would take a look at, you know, what the implications are. Right now, those areas of exploration, though, are more focused on quality program and learning outcomes, as opposed to access to the program. However, that's one of the things about working at it through this approach, where we may find that it's a question that is asked by staff, you know, by families, caregivers, the wider community, and it may result in, you know, it may result in further exploration. Is the honest answer at this stage.
Thank you for your answers. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Connie. Morad?
Thank you. I have a quick question. My question is related to the working group. You mentioned that the consultation approach will be used. I would like to know what the format of the consultation and if parents will be included on those consultations. And also if there are lessons learned from past review or assessment about the process. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much. Parent consultation will likely take a number of different formats, both in person and not in person. It's really important that, and that's why, you know, our experiences in past reviews, our experiences with asking our parent community and guardians about their, I'm thinking of past surveys, I'm thinking of the focus groups that have been done. It could be smaller interviews that are conducted. What we really want to do is, with these families and caregivers, and I include caregivers because a number of the students, excuse me, I keep saying I apologize. I've only been like almost retired for about a year, but you know, I just still feel like I'm part of everything and the school board. But I'm thinking of group homes as caregivers. So Peter talked about perspectives, and that's really what we would like. We would really like a full representation, and I realize that's asking a lot. These families are that I learned from and came to know. They're extremely busy with the needs of their children, and they, you know, they have a lot going on in their lives. And so helping them find the time and the space and the support to participate will be a focus of the working group in consultation with the staff who know the families best. So yes, there will be multiple opportunities. It could be by email, could be in person. We imagine surveys, focus groups, participation of community members to support. We may be the ones who go out to the community to actually hold those small group meetings within the community, as was done with some of the work around identity-based surveys. So we're prepared to do whatever it takes to try to get the most information possible and the best information possible, because the implications for students and their families further down the road are so crucial to the outcomes for these young people. So that's where we're at with that. There have been reviews conducted over the years, and I think most recently, though, the work of the Carolyn Tanner's work as our Human Rights and Equity Advisor, that's where, and her work with READ, the formerly known as the Quality Assurance Department. I'm sorry, please forgive me.
Research, evaluation,
Analytics
department.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I apologize to READ. They're a really important component of the work, and our program, the program evaluator we're working with, Mike, he has the background to construct these tools, and if need be, we will reach out to READ to ask for their participation, their help. And like as I mentioned earlier, Carolyn Tanner has already offered her help in terms of constructing some of these tools. So I hope that answers your question. I may not have quite touched on the previous reviews.
Morad? I don't know if he's frozen. Oh, looks good. Do we have any other questions or concerns or comments?
So Sonia, like I said, we do hope to be bringing regular updates. We do know that primary stakeholders are also the parents, families, and caregivers of the Crystal Bay and Clifford Bowie as well. So hope to be engaged in keeping everyone up to date on this work as it progresses.
Fantastic, thank you.
Could I just acknowledge that Trustee Campbell has put a question or a message in chat, and so Trustee Campbell, I think that perhaps I'll do a check-in with Peter, and together we can do some follow-up based on the question that you've asked about descriptors of those reviews as they're posted on the board website.
Perfect, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Peter, I believe this is your time to speak about the staff recommendation budget.
It is. I've just lost my notes. And okay, here we go. So earlier this week, there was a committee of the whole budget meeting, and Kathy wasn't in attendance on behalf of SEAC, but I wanted to share a little bit of the highlights of it as it relates to interests of the Special Education Advisory Committee. In the staff recommended budget and for consideration, contemplation, and debate in the upcoming weeks, there has been considerable investments in special education and mental health, and because those two portfolios fall into LSS, we'll share them here. There is a recommendation for 35 additional educational assistants. They'll be split. Some of them will go to sustain our designated occasional EA model, which sees EAs assigned to schools, and if they're not needed for replacement at those schools, they're able to access other schools. It goes a ways to addressing the staff shortages that we have been experiencing, and we're going to continue to learn from that model and move forward. The committee also knows that we have added some additional specialized program classes, specifically ASD classes at secondary, and we'll be supporting those. And then the remaining will be used to support needs in schools. So they will be allocated to school as we become aware of new and emerging needs. In addition, there is a recommendation in the budget for 2.5 additional social workers. Over the course of this year, we were able to hire an additional identity-specific social worker to support students who are LGBTQ+. You'll recall that we've also shared in the past, we have hired identity-specific social workers for Black and Indigenous students as well. So continuing to grow the social work complement in that regard, so that for those students who wish to access an identity-specific social worker, we're able to provide that service. And we are seeing strong uptake in the caseloads assigned to those social workers. I mean, there's strong uptake to the caseloads for all of our social workers, but of interest to note is that the identity-specific social workers are well received and important members of our department. So that's one. One will help to support students at the alternative programs, secondary programs, as we know that those students often present with some elevated needs as it relates to mental health in those programs. And half will be to support safe schools. And that half is important because it's also paired with an additional 1.0 CELT, or social emotional learning teacher. And the idea is that those two additions, the one teacher and the half social worker, will help to support strategies for students who are struggling, perhaps students for who, sorry, Murad just came back in, I'll let him in. To help build strategies so that we can ensure the supports are in place for students prior to considering anything that might result in the need for safe schools involvement or safe schools placement as a result of suspension. We've also increased 2.0 psychology interns, and the committee will recall that when Dr. Schaub was here, our supervisor of psychology, talking about the department, she shared about our intern program, and at that point we'd had 2 interns, and we asked to increase to 4. Simultaneous to that, we are looking at being accredited by the Canadian Psychological Association as placement that would then be available to students who can access their matching program. So similar to what medical doctors go through, where they try to match to various programs, the Canadian Psychological Association has has a similar model, and it allows access to very strong candidates, and in the past, I think 80% of them have stayed on with our district for a period of time, which will assist with our recruitment and retention as well. But even if they do move on, by offering an accredited placement in school psychology, we are further supporting that field across the province as a unique and specialized area of study. So very happy to be continuing with that, and the addition of the 2 will bring us to 4 interns. And I know this committee has been very interested in the de-streaming work, and just to make you aware, while the position is out of program and learning, there is a recommendation to increase 1.0 system principal for it to support de-streaming out of program and learning, or PAL, and more info on that will follow, but I am quite confident that we will be working very closely with that system principal as we work to support the needs of students with special education needs in the new de-streamed courses, keeping in mind that tier 1 strategies are required for everyone, and program and learning is a key partner in ensuring that tier 1 strategies are available and in use by teachers in those classrooms. I wanted to share those elements, and I don't know, Kathy, if you caught anything else that might be of particular interest to the committee, but wanted to share because the next meeting is next week, and if there is particular feedback from the committee, it might be helpful for Kathy to hear that. If there are things, if there's a reaction or anything that Kathy should be aware of in order to fulfill her position as SEAC rep on Cal budget. Kathy, did I forget anything?
No, I think you did a great job summarizing and the details, especially as they pertain to special education. So, but yeah, I welcome anyone's input or questions or anything like that that I could route through the committee.
In the budget documents, which are available on the board website as attachments to the meetings, there is an appendix that talks about the increases to the budget, and it explains some of the rationale and the goal behind them. So you can, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. I think we're D4, D6, D7, and D9 in the appendix. So if you look for those, if you look for section D anyway, you'll be able to find the ones that are that I reported on, and be able to hear and be able to read about some of the work that's being highlighted for those new positions.
Is there any, I was just going to say, if there's anybody right now who'd like to provide information or questions or feedback for Kathy. You said it was next week, right? The meeting? Okay.
Is it Tuesday, Kathy?
I think it's Wednesday, actually.
Wednesday, okay. So I know there's an opportunity later on in this meeting for Kathy to provide an update on Cal budget. I suspect I might have shared some of the things that she might have been otherwise been sharing. But there is an opportunity to provide feedback at that section of the agenda, and also to provide feedback if you want to email Sonia, Kathy, and myself. That would be great as well.
And Catherine Holden has her hand up.
I know, sorry, me again. I do have just a quick question because I'm ignorant in this area. What would happen if, based on the system class placement recommendation committees that are those things that are experienced right now, what would happen if there was any type of program where there was generated a very large waiting list? What would be the recourse of the school board in terms of looking at creating a new class? Is it too late because the budget is passed? I don't know what that process is.
So the budget is not passed yet. We've just presented the staff recommended budget, and trustees are currently debating it and eliciting input from the community as necessary. We do have a couple, and we've brought a report to SEAC to outline some of those areas of pressure that we're experiencing. So for example, in the area of students with ASD, we are experiencing a wait list there, and we have increased our complement of itinerant teachers to help support students in those classrooms and the teachers and staff delivering those programs. So we do look to augment staff in different ways. We sometimes find ourselves in a position of having to make a decision to add a classroom, but it does cause significant disruption to schools at this point, and it does interrupt staffing complements and routines and operations within schools. So we're reluctant to do it except when absolutely pushed, and we have received feedback from some schools when the decision is made too late that it is very problematic for a school to implement and be up and running by September. So we would be looking for other ways to support wherever possible.
Catherine? I don't know if she's frozen or.
No, sorry.
Okay.
I was in the chat. I didn't know how to get back again. Sorry. Thank you. That answers my question. It was an item of curiosity and quite topical in terms of what's happening in our system right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. So not seeing any other questions or comments related to that. I'll move on
to the special education summer programming.
Not yet.
Okay.
Oh, yes, that is the next piece.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm referring to my notes and not the agenda over here. So as you know, for the past several years, we have been offering supports to students over the summer. And I have asked the team to share just super briefly, no presentations, but just to ensure that the committee is aware, and through the committee, the public is aware of some of the things that we're working on for the course of this summer. So as you know, we annually run a summer learning program for students with ASD and DD. And Stacy has a bit of an update as it relates to that, and also some of the tutoring initiatives that we're involved in.
Thank you, Peter. I'm privileged to get to speak to this tonight with Chris Kessler present, because she has nicely passed the baton on to me. And this is my first summer with oversight of this long-standing OCDSB program. I am pleased to report that after 2 unusual years, 2 summers ago, you'll remember that we were not able to run the program due to the health restrictions at that time. We did run a modified version of the program last summer with significantly reduced numbers. This year, we are moving forward with an in-person summer learning program for our students with ASD and DD. It will be a full program serving approximately 288 students. There will be 3 sites again this summer, and our sites will be Clifford Bowie, Crystal Bay, and Hawthorne Public School. The program is running from July the 5th through to the 27th, and I'm pleased to report we have 3 site administrators, names that will be familiar to many of this group: Pete Burgess, Jenny Dewan, and John Copeland. And they have successfully staffed almost all of their teachers, educational assistants, and office administrators. So we're well on track and on schedule, and really excited to be welcoming 288 students this summer. Peter, I think you also wanted me to mention very briefly that we do have funding from the ministry again this summer to provide professional assessments for students waiting for speech language pathology and psychological assessments. We are working right now with our supervisors of speech language pathology and psychology and our school teams to prioritize that work. And we do have our professional support staff lined up. And we are looking to complete approximately 95 psychological assessments and approximately 65 speech language pathology assessments. So welcome news, and we're very encouraged by the opportunity to support students and the educational teams that use this valuable information. Finally, as Dr. Maggie is aware, we are working in partnership with several community associations, including the LDAOC, the Learning Disabilities Association of Ottawa-Carleton, and very pleased that using funding that the ministry has provided with respect to learning recovery and tutoring supports, working in partnership with the LDAOC to offer a range of programs addressing literacy, numeracy, leadership, self-advocacy. We will have a memo out shortly to our school teams, and then LDAO will be hearing from parents and caregivers that are interested to complete an intake process. We will be initially providing this information to our 25 target schools. So our schools that have been identified through our partners in program and learning, where students may be coming from disadvantaged neighborhoods and communities. So we're beginning the distribution of this information to those schools, providing that opportunity for a significant number of students this summer. So really excited to be engaging in this work with our LDAO partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to note for the minutes, we did get a thumbs up from Maggie. I see there's a question, so I'll pause before we go on, Chair.
Yeah, I saw two. Okay, thumbs up from Dr. Maggie, hands up. Morad, go for it.
I just want to know, thank you for the information. I would just like to know, what are the ages targeted for the program? You mentioned 2 to 88 students. So
yes.
what are the age?
Yes, so for our summer learning program for students with ASD and DD, it's students who are presently in our specialized program classes for autism spectrum disorder developmental disabilities are eligible to apply for summer learning program. Therefore, we serve students anywhere from kindergarten through to the end of their 21st year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Morad. Are there any other questions? No, go ahead, Peter.
So in addition, we are also fortunate to be able to continue to provide the continuity of mental health supports. And you will have met our mental health lead, Emily Balla, who's going to share a brief update around that.
Good evening, everyone. So yes, we're fortunate to be able to offer mental health supports again this summer. And so really focusing on that continuity of care. Referrals will come and be identified by the current social workers, psychologists, and the itinerant educational assistants within the buildings. And so this year we will be offering both in-person and virtual, which is new. And that'll be really wonderful, I think, for some of our students that we work with. So we are not going to be picking up new referrals, but again, that focus on that continuity of care, focusing on pairing students with the same worker, of course, whenever that is possible. We also will be providing in the last 2 weeks of the summer that transition support. So for some of the students that have significant mental health needs, we will be providing support to assist and ease in that transition. For some of the students that struggle significantly with anxiety or that return, that 2 weeks can be really important for them. So we will be providing that once again. And finally, we will also be holding groups for students. As you may recall, last year we did offer Kids Have Stress Too, and we will be doing that again this year. Once again, the referrals will come internally, and we will open up spaces if available. And finally, I would just note that Rita Wood also will be continuing in the summer to be providing services in the schools. And so that service will continue as well, specifically at our summer school sites.
Thanks, Emily. And just to be clear, Rita Wood provides addiction services for students in our district. So glad that they're continuing on and students will continue to be supported. And then finally, I'll turn to Amy for our summer transition program.
Thanks, Peter. And so one of our last offerings to share is the summer transition program. So if it's for students K to 21 across the district in both elementary and secondary placements. And this program is intended for students with high special education needs. So this isn't to replace transition activities that are required legislatively for students. This is to enhance that, to further enhance transition activities that might happen. This program runs like it has the last 2 years, the last 2 weeks in August, leading up to the beginning of school. And it is going to be offered by teachers within each school for the students that they may be nominating. So really, we've invited schools, and we just had the opportunity to meet with principals today to discuss this actual program and to talk about how they should be working closely with their multi-D team. And they should be also looking at that criteria, which is those students receiving those tier 3 interventions, that highest level of support at the school level, you know, ones that are being discussed at a multi-D level and those types of pieces within the school. And yeah, so usually schools are given between 2 to 4 days for these transition activities for the students in their care. And that depends on the size of school and the amount of students that are nominated and brought forward. And when schools submit their information to us, parents and guardians should be receiving a call sort of near the end of June, inviting them to participate in this extension of transition activities for their child or for their youth. So yeah, basically, it's very similar to the last 2 years, and just sharing that it's going to continue this August as well. And both myself and Assistant Principal Stout are the leads for this one. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And just picking up on your last part there, so much of what we're able to do over the summer is dependent on receiving PPF funding from the Ministry of Education to pay for staff time. But also we are super cognizant of the fact that our educators have been burning the candle at both ends for such a long time, and over a couple of summers working intensely as the landscape changes. So staffing is a challenge. I am a very strong believer that people need to have their time away as well to rest and recharge, but we will do our best to staff as we can, but recognizing that we are in the position of needing to honor and and encourage staff to be able to take time away, as hopefully we are turning a corner, knock on wood as I say that, but hopefully that people will be able to have a restful summer. And on that note, because this will be my last chance to speak likely, I just want to send a sincere thank you to members of the committee for your input, your advice, your conversations, the discussion and questions that you guys have offered us over the course of the year. I think one of the things that has helped make LSS a stronger department is hearing up front from the voices at SEAC and being able to consider some of the suggestions, some of the guidance, be able to turn to people for support and say, hey, you know something about this? Are you able to provide some input on it as we inform our thinking? I can't say it strong enough how sincerely not just I, but all of us appreciate the input of the committee, and selfishly it helps us do our work better. And I know while we may not always agree, every one of us has a student in mind that we want to see outcomes improve for at the end of the day. So I know that we are all on the same path moving forward, and you guys have also given up evenings for the last 10 months, longer in that we had some summer meetings as well. But thank you very much for everything you've done to support us, to support the district, and ultimately to support the students who attend the OCDSB. So on that note, I do hope that every one of you have a safe, relaxing, and restful summer holiday, and that you're able to get away from whatever it is you're engaged in during the day or your work, and be able to reconnect with friends and family, because you guys deserve it too. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you as well. We're going to move ahead to our committee reports. We still don't have someone at the board who represents for SEAC. Nothing to report from the committee of the whole. And Kathy, for our budget, which Peter took that rave from you, eh?
That's all right. I'm good.
Okay. But like we said earlier too, right? Like if there's anything that pops up in the next couple of days for you, you guys can email us and Kathy can bring it forward at the meeting next week. And also, Terry, is there anything to report on our EDP, our childcare?
No, there has been no meeting since I last reported.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. You'll see also in our agenda package, we have the upcoming tentative meetings for the next school year for 2022-2023. Ouch. It's already there, right? So that's there for your viewing. I see Nancy going, oh yeah. Moving on to new business. Terry, I believe you had something. You had to go through Jim though, if that was okay to bring it up.
Jim and I are just chatting here on the direct message, and I will defer to him to raise the point. So my microphone is going off.
Thank you. Jim?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to pick up, I guess, to follow on the topic that Amy was talking about in terms of summer learning support. As some of you know, in the past, we have run a summer voice camp for the DHH children. We have made best efforts to try to organize and get things in place for this year. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So with sad hearts, we have to say we will pass for yet another year. That said, planning is already beginning to put things in place for next year. So hopefully we can pick up, because I know it is something that the DHH students have benefited from in the past, and wanted to extend the thanks to Amy and team for the support that they have extended. And hopefully we can take you up on that going forward. Unfortunately, just not this year.
Okay. Are there any, yeah, Peter?
I'm just remembering Maggie had sent an email around. I don't know if it went to all the committee or if we distribute it regarding, is it Sunshine Camp,
Yep.
Maggie?
Yeah, and we distributed it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for doing that. We very much appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful. You're welcome. Any other new business? No? Okay, so before the meeting is adjourned, as well as Peter had mentioned, I want to thank everybody here at this committee for this past year. It wasn't easy that we were back at virtual. We didn't probably expect this to happen, but I really appreciate the dedication, the conversations, the input, and taking the time aside in the evenings to come and advocate for the youth that we speak up for every day and every month. And I thank you very much, and I appreciate this a great deal. And I enjoy, as you can hear, my dog in the back is saying the same thing. And I want to thank you so much as a border collie. She's losing it right now, hearing all your voices. So, but I really thank you, and I do hope that in September we are back in person. Fingers crossed that we get to see each other again. So I really want to wish you all a good summer. And Jim, I don't know if many of you are aware, Jim will be taking off for a year with his family to travel. So I want to thank you as well for all your support in our agenda prep, as well as your input in our meetings. And hopefully wherever you are next year, you'll grace us with your presence on your wonderful journey. And we look forward to hearing from you when you do come back.
Oh, thank you for the well wishes, much appreciated. And in the short term, Terry will be keeping the chair. He'll be filling in, and we will be looking for a longer term replacement, as I'll be gone for a whole year. And I know Terry's been trying to step back for a while, but we never let him go away. So we appreciate his dedication and support.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to add in? All right, and as Peter said, try and have a restful summer and take some time for yourself, for your mental health. You deserve it. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.